Think about every other channel you run and notice how each one hands you a number. Your SEO has a ranking, your ads have a cost per click, your emails have an open rate, so you always know, roughly, whether things are working. Now think about AI search, about ChatGPT and Gemini quietly recommending tools to your buyers all day long. For most marketers, that's the one channel with a blank space where the number should be. And there is a number that belongs in that space. It's called your AI search visibility. So let me show you what it is, how it's put together, and why it's worth putting a number there instead of leaving it blank. So here's the idea. Your AI search visibility is how present your brand is across all those AI answers, pulled together into a single number you can track over time. Picture it a little like a credit score for your reputation in AI search. One figure that tells you, at a glance, whether the engines are putting you in front of buyers or leaving you out. And if you know the term AEO, Answer Engine Optimization, this is the other half of it. AEO is the work, the pages you write and the places you show up to get into those answers. Your visibility is the readout on that work, the score that tells you whether it's landing. And without that score, you're flying blind, pouring effort into content and Reddit and reviews with no way to tell if any of it reached the answer. So it's worth understanding how the score is built, because once you can read it, you know where to push. So how do you get to one number? The headline is a rate. Out of all the questions your buyers ask, what share do you turn up in? So it reads like, you show up in 40% of the answers buyers see. And that rate is weighted by engine, because showing up on ChatGPT, where a huge share of buyers are, counts for more than showing up on a tiny one. So the number leans toward real reach instead of a flat average that treats every engine the same. Then, sitting underneath that headline is the breakdown, the 5 signals that tell you why the number is what it is. Whether the engine names you, whether it links to a source backing you up, where you land in the order, the tone it takes about you, and how many of the engines include you at all. I pull each of those apart in my What is AEO video, so I won't go through every one again here, but they're the lines you read when you want to know what's moving your score. Now let me show you why the breakdown underneath that number matters, starting with the first 2 signals, named and linked. They can come apart in a big way. In our own tracking, Google Analytics is the clearest case. Over a couple of months, it got named in more than 140 different answers, and across every one of them, no engine ever pointed to a source standing behind it. So if your score only counted whether you got named, Google Analytics would look like it's winning everything. The moment you separate getting named from getting backed by a source, that picture flips on its head. Because a name the engine pulls from memory carries far less weight than a name it can point to a source for. And that's the whole point of a score over a quick glance. It holds those two apart instead of blurring them into a vague sense that you showed up. The next signal is position, and it's easy to wave off until you picture the answer the way a buyer reads it. Being named third in a list of 5 is a different thing from being named first. The buyer skims. The first name gets the click and the mental shortlist, and the rest are scenery. So 2 brands can both score a mention on the same question, and one of them is taking almost all the value while the other is barely registering. A flat yes or no on whether you appeared would call those 2 a tie. The position part of the score is what tells them apart, and it's the one challengers have to watch closest, since climbing from 4th to 1st is most of the battle. Then there's the signal almost nobody watches. Sentiment, the tone the engine takes when it talks about you. An engine rarely lists your name and stops. It characterizes you with little phrases like reliable but pricey, or great for small teams but thin for enterprise. And you can be named right at the top and still be quietly talked out of the sale by the words wrapped around your name. Picture 2 brands both landing the number 1 spot on the same question. The one described as the safe, popular choice wins, and the one described as fine, but most teams outgrow it, loses, even though a yes or no mention score would mark them identical. So a brand can rack up plenty of mentions and still be leaking buyers, and sentiment is the only line on the scoreboard that catches it. When it dips, you fix it at the source by updating the stale review that's feeding the line and getting happy customers to put the better story where the engines read it. The 5th signal is coverage. How many of the engines include you at all? And it's where brands get the rudest surprise. In our early data, the big established brands showed up on all 5 engines, while younger brands averaged around 3 of the 5. You can be the top pick on ChatGPT and a complete ghost on Perplexity. because the two of them lean on almost entirely different sources to build their answers. So a brand that feels like it's winning because it checked the one engine it happens to use can be invisible to a whole slice of its buyers somewhere else. A single blended number can bury that, which is why you keep the per-engine view sitting underneath it. The good part is that a coverage gap doubles as a to-do list. It names the engine you're missing, and because each one favors its own kind of source, it hints at where to go and earn your way in. Two more things about reading this number, and then what to do with it. The first is that it won't sit still. Ask the engines the same question twice, and the answer can swing by up to about half, partly because they fold randomness into every response on purpose, and partly because the hardware and the web sources they pull from keep shifting underneath. So one reading is a snapshot, and a snapshot can catch you on a lucky day or an unlucky one. You read visibility as a trend across weeks, not a single number on a single afternoon. My How to Check video walks through reading that movement without getting fooled, so I'll point you there for the method. The second is that your score means little on its own. A visibility of, say, 40 out of 100 sounds rough, until you see the rival beating you is sitting at 42, and you realize you're nearly level. So the number you watch most is the gap between you and whoever keeps turning up ahead of you. And that gap tends to start steep, because when buyers ask for alternatives to a well-known tool, the established name still grabs the top spot most of the time. In one small sample from our early tracking, that was around 87% of the time. So the truest read is your share of the answers in your category, you and your rivals side by side, and whether your slice of that is growing month over month. So what counts as a good score? There's no universal number yet, and anyone who hands you one is guessing. A fair rule of thumb for most B2B brands is that showing up in around half the main category questions your buyers ask, across at least 3 of the engines, is strong. Below that, you've got room, and the breakdown shows you where. On movement, hold your nerve. A few points up or down from one week to the next is mostly noise, the randomness we talked about. What you're looking for is a steady climb over a month or so, measured against the baseline you started from. So you set that baseline today, you watch the trend and the gap to your rivals, and you stop reading much into a single good or bad afternoon. 3 mistakes trip people up when they read this number, worth naming so you can dodge them. The first is reading one engine and assuming the others say the same, when they usually don't, so a clean result on ChatGPT can hide trouble everywhere else. The second is overreacting to one bad reading, when a single dip is usually the randomness talking, not a real drop. The third is the quiet one, tracking vanity questions, like asking the engine to describe your own brand, which tells you almost nothing. The questions that count are the ones a buyer asks before they've picked anyone, the category and comparison questions, because those are the answers a sale turns on. Step back, and you can see why this number earns its place. Your visibility is the feedback loop for your AEO work. You publish an answer first page, you land in a comparison roundup, you turn up in a Reddit thread, and on their own, none of those tell you which one moved the needle. The score shifting is how the work tells you it landed. Without it, you're guessing, and you can pour months into the wrong move and never find out. You can start putting a number on this today for nothing. Run your buyers' real questions across the engines, 3 times each since the answers move around, and note whether you got named and whether you got linked. I won't walk every step here because my How to Check video takes you through the whole routine end to end. The one thing to hold on to is to do it on a schedule. Read the trend over a few weeks instead of glancing once and trusting what you see. Doing all of that by hand gets heavy fast. Rerunning questions across every engine, week after week, and keeping the record yourself. That's where a tool earns its place. Loudmink is one example. It rolls all of this into one weighted score, leans it toward the engines your buyers lean on most, shows you the share of questions you turn up in, and tracks how that moves over time, with the sources sitting underneath. And there's a free scan that puts a number on where you stand right now, before you commit to anything. So if that channel's been a blank space for you, you can fill it in over at loudmink.ai. Tool or not, the move is the same. Start keeping score, instead of finding out months from now that you were never in the answer.